See if Obsession are on frequency. Obsession, Obsession, if you could give me a Roger, Roger, please. Did anyone hear anything from Obsession? No, nothing heard. All right, folks, this is Gold Harbour Radio. Good morning, everybody. We're a little early because we have an awful lot to get through weather-wise today. Patricia and David, ZMH 286, and it's Monday, the 8th of October, and we are starting early because we do have a lot to get through weather-wise because so many of you are wanting to work out how to get to New Zealand leaving this week, and it's not going to be all that easy. So David will spend quite a bit of time this morning. He will start early. He will start before the half hour, as I am starting before the quarter hour, because there's a lot of interesting stuff, and if you are thinking of getting away, then you will need your pencil and paper to write down what is going on. And I'm hoping that this frequency is a lot better at your end than it is at mine. If need be, we'll just have to switch frequencies at the end and do a bit of repeating. So just hang fire with us and we'll see what we can do. All right, I'm going to get on to some weather first. First of all, good morning to the folks also on streaming. I know there's quite a few of you out there. It's certainly easier to listen on streaming if you've got that opportunity. So for those that have not heard that we're on streaming, if you go to our website, ghradio.co.nz, and click on the streaming, you're attached to the internet, of course, then you will be able to hear us on streaming. We have an absolutely flat, calm day here, but you won't be impressed with the temperature this morning at Gold Harbour. 13 degrees, 13. Our barometer is steady on 1022.7. 6 knots of sou'wester, it says, but there's not much movement up here. That was about an hour ago, and we've got about 40% bit of stratus cloud hanging around, so not much to speak of here. So might be another decent day. All right, a bit of news. Actually, the first bit of news comes from one of you guys. Jeffrey is on Flying Fish, is at North Minerva, and he reports that there is a military boat. They didn't say what military it was. I'm assuming Tonga, but if it's not Tonga, Jeffrey, let us know. It's a naval warship anyway, is stationed just outside the pass, North Minerva Reef. Not sure whether they're going to take the contributions on the way through, but there you have it. It always gets a little bit sensitive, but North Minerva is to between Tonga and Fiji and the like. So just be aware that there is a warship stationed outside North Minerva Reef, where at the moment it's a southerly 12 knots, 80% cloud and rain squalls on the horizon coming down across from Fiji. And he saw lightning last night when you guys in Fiji were having your little electrical storm. All right, so just stand by. I'm turning the heater off here. Boy, bit of controversy in the radio room as to what is the comfortable working temperature. All right, news, folks, in no particular order. Thankfully, Brett Kavanaugh has now been elected. I say thankfully because we're sick of hearing all about it. He has been elected by the Senate very, very close, 52 to 48, so one vote would have changed it. And of course, it has now really, really polarized politics in America. Somebody described it as the Reds and the Blues being put in a centrifuge. They are now very clearly separated from each other, and that's going to make the November elections really, really interesting. So he's now the new, for a very long time, given his age, Conservative Supreme Court judge. A bit of motor racing news. Bathurst was on yesterday. Now, for those folks that are not New Zealanders and Australians, you'll probably wonder what on earth this race has so much popularity, but it's an amazing race at Mount Panorama for the supercars. It was the last race this year for the Ford Falcons because Ford are replacing the Falcons with Mustangs next year. It was a very interesting race as per normal. 250,000 people there scattered around Mount Panorama and 40,000 campers, which of course is about the only way that you can stay reasonably close. So they swarm in from all over the country. 40,000 campers, 250,000 people watched Craig Lowndes win quite significantly, about 7 seconds ahead of Scott Pye and then Scotty McLaughlin. But Lowndes was an amazingly popular winner because this was his last race as a full-time driver, so what a way to go out. In the Tokyo Grand Prix, not Tokyo, Japanese Grand Prix, Hamilton ahead of Bottas, Verstappen, Ricciardo, Raikkonen and Vettel, and our guys they'd started Hartley was actually on pole number, 6. Sure. Anyway, he dropped down to 13, which is not all that bad for his first year in Formula One. Gasly, his Toro Rosso teammate, was 11, but they were a lap behind the winning group there. Okay, on to sea snakes. Now, this was an interesting one, not a very good story, but very interesting because we tend to sort of think that their mouths are too tiny to cause us any problems. But in Northern Territory, just off Northern Territory, a fisherman at the top there pulled in his nets on a fishing boat and he got bit and he did not last very long. They tried to do what they could, but he died very quickly. So, boy, that sea snake must have been really irate to be pulled in on a net. But, boy, that adds to the list of things that are going to do you in Australia. Blue spotted octopus, crocodiles, snakes, spiders. What's the name of that jellyfish that blinds you? Something or other. So, yeah, but if you're going to Australia, folks, you have to be really, really careful in the water.
Make sure your will is up to date.
Yeah, David just said make sure the will is up to date. Okay, you wouldn't want to be upsetting the party policy in China. The president of Interpol, mind you, of Interpol, he's based in Lyon in France, Meng Hongwei. He happens to be Chinese, and he went home for something or other, has never been seen since. So I guess Interpol are on the job, but I think he did upset the party policy in some way or another. And Chinese policy, so you don't get very far if you do that in China. Boeing, for you ex-pilots out there, or retired pilots, Boeing have released pictures of their new 777-9X. It's a 2-engine aircraft. It has folding wings. The wingspan is 235 feet, which actually is less than the Airbus A380 with its 4-engine, 261 they are. But this will, of course, enable them to get into the gates at airports that are not built for a lot of space around the wings. So the folding wingtips are about 12 feet long. Not sure that 12 feet on both sides is all that significant, but I guess it is. The wings are made of carbon fibre, and evidently the aircraft being only 2 engines and having lighter wings and all the rest of it is much more fuel efficient, and it will be in service in 2020. All right, interesting news for ladies anyway. Vitamin D supplements. Another study has just come out. You know how virtually everything we've eaten or taken over the last 20 years has been debunked in one way or another. But anyway, they have now shown in this latest study that vitamin D supplements do not improve bone health. The idea was that it helped calcium absorb into the bones of women and prevent fractures, particularly in the elderly. But the study, which was 53,000 people and many of them over 65, has of course been criticised by all those, I suppose, the vitamin suppliers. But it is agreed generally that you get better vitamin D from the sun and food than you do in supplements, which of course is the same thing that has been proven for vitamins A, E, and C. Okay, just a bit of historical news for Kiwis. 6 o'clock closing ended this week in 1967. 6 o'clock closing, folks, was all the pubs or anyone that actually issued alcohol had to shut down at 6 o'clock. It was called the 6 o'clock swill because the last call went out and you had to get as much as you could from the bar to keep you going. It started in 1917 as an austerity measure after the war, and boy, it hung on till 1967. At least it got all the men home after that for dinner, but anyway, it closed 1967. I can recall that. Boy, I must be getting old. Okay, that's about the news. David has reminded me that he wants to start early this morning because there are quite a few people who want to get going. If there's anybody wanting to contact us, then we'll do it after the net. I have got Tessa's position. I've got a lot of emails in. We know who you are wanting to leave. We're looking this morning at the passage actually from Minerva and Tonga and Fiji. So we'll get on to that, but it's quite complicated. So what I suggest you do, if that's on your horizons for doing something, that you sit there with a pencil and paper. And if this frequency is not very good for you, you have got the option of streaming, and what we'll do is look at going to another frequency later to see if that is any better for you. All right, so thank you, John. You can hear us clearly on 8752 at Muscat, so that's good. Where it's raining. All right, I'm going to pass the microphone, folks, and we'll take any calls after David has finished.
All right, good morning, everyone. We hope you survived the weekend. Sounded like it was pretty sporty up in some areas in the islands. Now, a lot of emails that we've gotten, apparently there is a slug of you that want to depart for Opua or somewhere here in New Zealand today. We had that last window that we covered fairly well all of last week, but apparently there are quite a few of you that are wanting to go today at some time. So let's hope that most of you can hear me. So I'm going to start off by looking at today's synoptic chart. Now, over the Tasman, we've got a pretty strong high. Central pressure is about 1029 or 1029 millibar. This high ridges to the north, but just to the northeast of East Cape is a weak low, a small depression, and it's extending a trough to the North Island. Plus, I can see on imagery a very short and weak occluded front that's just off of the east side of the upper North Island. Right now, as Patricia said here at Gulf Harbor, it's mostly sunny, but we can see the cloud that are part of that troughing system. Okay, to the west of the Tasman High is a depression, and that's just to the east of Sydney. It's sending a very short frontal wave that gets up to about 30 south and roughly 160 east. Now this low is going to mature, and it's going to lie mid-Tasman by Thursday, the 11th of October. Actually a little bit sooner than that, but it's going to be fairly broad with a frontal band that's obviously preceding that. Now, those yachts that are approaching New Zealand today, those of you that took the last window, are going to find fairly light air, quite variable coming into New Zealand. And those winds are going to be turning westerly by Wednesday and then northwest on Thursday as the frontal band approaches the North Island. And it will be over the North Island late on Thursday. Now, those of you looking to leave Opua this week are going to find southeast winds on Tuesday around 15 knots as you head south from Fiji or Tonga. And by Thursday at 25 south, you could expect easterlies about 10 to 15, wanting to shift to the northerly quadrant as you sail pretty much along the western edge of the departing high. The high is ridging to the west, and the whole assembly, if you will, is moving to the east. Now, by Saturday at 30 south, yachts are going to be sailing into the perimeter of that depression that's been over New Zealand. The winds are going to be mostly westerlies, 25 knots and higher gusts. Now, on Sunday, I'm afraid we're going to see a southerly shift. It's going to be 15 to 25 knots, depending upon your longitude and how close to New Zealand that you've actually gotten by then. Now, on Monday, the depression is going to be far enough to the east. This is Monday. So virtually a week from today. So that'll be far enough to the east, whereas the next high is going to traverse the Tasman, and its center will be approaching New Zealand. So here we go with one after the other. This is a very strong one, folks. We're looking at 1035 to 1037, 1037 millibar. Now, winds are going to be southerly quadrant from 30 south to New Zealand on Monday and Tuesday, the 16th. We should see a trough go over New Zealand on or about, like I said earlier, Thursday. Thursday is the 18th, I guess. Followed by what I call a super anticyclone. The central pressure estimated to be 1040 millibar. So that's quite a ways in the future. That's the 18th, and after the 18th. Now, this one is going to bring a trade wind surge to the islands, but all of this is guesstimation as we're talking 10 to 12 days from now. And by the way, when we talk about a trade wind surge, it's generally a 1-2 punch combination. You're getting very strong southeasterlies that's caused by the rather strong pressure differential. And generally that's bringing showers and rain. So ordinarily, Met services like Fiji Met will discuss trade wind surges when the time comes. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, very briefly, if you have a pencil, for those of you that are leaving today, and those of you that are not really that fast, we're looking at maybe a little less than 6 knots. I'm going to give you the wind estimations at various latitudes, and that's if you're leaving Fiji or Tonga. So departing today, I'm going to get into the actual winds and so forth at the islands and so forth. But looking at 18 south, some of you have left already this weekend based upon the data that we've got. And so down there at 18, we're looking at basically southeast winds. At 20 degrees south, which would be the Tuesday time frame, we're looking at southeast 10 to 15. And Wednesday, putting you at 22 degrees south, we're looking at east-southeast, fairly light air, about 10, 12 knots in there. Thursday at 24 south, easterlies about 10. Now on Friday is the 12th, and you'll be down about 26 south, 25, 26 south. There is the frontal band. So the front, or rather I should say the actual depression that's pretty much over New Zealand at that time is sending up a frontal band to the north, and those of you that are more or less on run line from either Fiji or Tonga, that's when you're going to strike this front. And the winds, depending upon your longitude, will be either east-northeast or north-northwest to northwest. The winds could be they could be, I would say, moderate at that point because you're quite north in this instance. The winds are much stronger to the south, but being only at 25, 26 south, the winds are not going to be that strong. But don't be surprised that if you get underneath a cumulonimbus as part of this weather front, you could get strong gusts. And by that I mean 30 to 35 knots, but only briefly. Now, Saturday at 28 south, the winds are changing because now the winds are on the other side of the frontal band, and you are now part of the cyclonic circulation of that big low that's to the south. And we're looking at south-southwest to southwest, 20 to 25 knots. So there's your stronger winds as we get further south. So that's at 28 south. At 30 south, figuring Sunday, which is, I believe, 14th, southerly winds about 15 to 20. So that's on the nose. And there you go. We're either going to have to be doing some tacking or just saying forget about it and turning the motor on and going for it. But Monday at 32 south, south-southeast winds, they're starting to back a little bit. So south-southeast for Monday, and the same thing for Tuesday at 34 south. Now, Wednesday, as you pretty much have arrived at Opua or Marsden, and you should by then, you'll find the winds are quite variable, reasonably light air, and that's because the center of the high is going to be pretty much over the top of the North Island. So that's what it's looking like between today and Wednesday of next week for those of you that have your heart set on leaving. Now, the yachts, at least one Flying Fish at Minerva Reef, they're having a good time, I guess. Hopefully they are. But looking, he's obviously a single-hander, as we've told you, and looking at heading to New Zealand whenever he's going to get the chance. Well, what I've just said, Flying Fish, applies to you as well. You're looking at Saturday right through Wednesday. The winds that I just gave are pretty much what you could expect as well. And essentially, you're going to be fairly hard on the wind. The frontal band will have passed you certainly by then, if you're leaving after Friday, not before Friday, but after Friday, you'll be experiencing the frontal band. Once that's over with, then you'll see the wind shift, and that's when you can make up your mind whether you stay a little bit longer or you deal with more or less headwinds, or at least a very, very close reach. Now, the longer you wait in Minerva, things will get a little bit better as the high that's over New Zealand, as it starts to head east, those winds will continue to back, and that will ease a little bit the wind direction for you. And anyway, we got word that you just caught yellowfin tuna, so that'll keep you busy in the food for a while. Now, that's pretty much summing up what this current passage this week and into next week is looking like. And I keep getting the questions on predict wind. I've done a little bit more study, and to be frank with you folks, they are a good source for getting your EC model and your GFS model. I have been doing some looking at their in-house models. Again, I did one just a few days ago, and I did another one that I just concluded this morning, and I'm afraid I can't use that particular model. Any of you want to know why, you could email me, but I don't want to get into it on the air. I just don't find it reliable for looking out past 3, 4, 5 days. They change their mind fairly frequently. Okay, so let's move on to the weather up in the tropics right now. It's very active up there. We've got an active trough that's running from the Solomons right through Vanuatu. Another one from Tuvalu. It goes over Rotuma and over Fiji at that point. Then we've got another one that runs from Tokelau just to the west of Samoa, and that one goes on to Tonga. And finally, we have a convergence zone that's over the northern Cooks, almost a permanent feature up there. Over to Tonga now, where we are entertaining a fairly weak trough. It does run over the group, so expect clouds and scattered showers through today and probably tomorrow as well. The actual conditions this morning, Vavau is reporting rather calm. Scattered cloud, barometer 1012. This is airport conditions now. The Hapai is calm as well. Temperature 23 and dew point 23. That's 100% relative humidity. So very wet decks and might as well be raining. Barometer 1012. And Tongatapu, variable winds there, a little bit all over the place. Very light air. And they've got scattered to broken cloud. And also temperature 21, dew point 21. So again, very, very high humidity, 100%. Barometer 1013. And the winds by lunch, my estimation, southeast about 10 to 15. Tomorrow southeast about 15 knots, right in that range. So not very strong winds at all, but again, higher gusts in the rain downfalls. Now we've got a fairly broad and broken trough that's rolling over Fiji. The cloud is moving in from the northwest to the southeast. The heavier bands are not quite over Fiji yet, looking at the satellite loop as we're speaking. These clouds are quite heavy rain clouds, looking at them right now. Fiji Met, in fact, has issued a heavy rain alert for the whole of Fiji. So if it's not affecting you now, I believe it soon will be. So expect this, by the way, to continue into tomorrow as well. Thunderstorms, again, can produce winds of 35 knots. And you could also get 180-degree wind shifts. So be on your toes for that, depending upon where you're anchoring. Again, you don't want to be too close to shore or any close-by bommies, because if the wind, in fact, does shift that much, you could be in trouble. Winds are not very strong in this, however, in the mean at least. So expect southeasterlies, I'd say about 10 to 15 today and tomorrow, but that's not counting the gusts. Vanuatu is getting the good news as well. Trough conditions over the group rolling in from the northwest. The wind's mostly 15 knots out of the southeast. Now tomorrow pretty much the same, but the northern group is going to be looking at a wind shift, I think, to the northeast. So about mid-Vanuatu, in the middle of the group, we're going to see the winds clashing, southeasterlies clashing with northeasterlies, and that's going to help maintain the trough. And finally, over in New Cal, the southern lagoon on the loop this morning looks pretty good, but bands of rain cloud are very evident over northern Grand Terre, all the way up and down Grand Terre, but on the northern side. And the loyalties, of course, are getting it too. But for the lagoon, doesn't look too bad. So I would say expect about 10 to 12 knots out of the southeast, picking up a little bit later today, but light air again tomorrow. I would say easterlies, about 10 knots, partly cloudy. And on Wednesday, east-southeast, about 10 knots. And we might see some scattered showers tomorrow over southern Grand Terre. I'm not so sure about the lagoon, but anyhow, the winds are fairly light, so not too bad at all for New Caledonia. In fact, New Caledonia has been sort of the place to be the tail end of this season, from what we can see in the reports that we've gotten. So good for all of you that happen to be there. It's our favorite spot, pretty much. And that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else. If you have any questions or comments, come now. If you're on passage, call in if you wish, and we'll give you any updates that we can on wind speed and direction. If you are not able to get your gribs or you're questioning your gribs. So I will pass this over to the boss, and come now if you need us.
All right, we have an email in from Obsession because they were wanting to leave today and cannot hear us on the radio but are listening on streaming. So they're looking possibly at Tuesday or Wednesday, and I think you sort of covered that, didn't you, about staying north of things. I'll just pass the microphone just to make sure it's all clear.
Well, the frontal band is going to go through basically 25 south on Friday. So if you want to delay, Sooner or later you're going to run into that. And then as you get going, as I said, from Friday on through next Wednesday, the winds are going to be southerly quadrant. So I think if you've written down everything that I've said, you'll have the wind direction. Now, you'll note, and this is for everyone, we did this exercise a couple of days ago, and we were looking at what the models were projecting for this particular passage. And there have been quite a few changes in what we've seen over the last 3 days on wind direction, not so much wind speed. That's been pretty much tied in. But we're getting a few changes on wind direction, and that's mainly because everything is moving a little bit quicker than what we thought. The upper levels are driving all of this, of course, and there's nothing unusual about this, which is why when you're planning a passage, you are looking every day, going through this exercise to see how repeatable things are. And when they start to become repeatable, then you can get some reliance in what's going on. But that's the story for Obsession and anyone else that wants to leave a little bit later this week. Now remember, folks, there are more windows coming. We see this all the time. That the last window wasn't too bad. It wasn't a great one, but it wasn't too bad. And then everyone thinks, my God, that's the last one. And if we don't get going, we're going to miss it. Well, you're not. There will be more. So don't get into a panic in that regard unless you've got issues with immigration. So there you go. And here's the bus. Okay.
Well, folks, we are moving to 8297, 8297. This is Gulf Harbour Radio. We are now on 8297. We probably have finished with everybody, and you probably didn't hear that I'm moving to here because of the radar. Is there anybody here? Yeah, hi, Graham. It probably wiped out everything that David said for those folks that were wanting to hear about the passage, but never mind. I think a lot of them are actually on streaming, so that's all right. Well, you're actually a lot clearer on this one, although, of course, the time is a little bit different. So is there anybody with any questions on anything that we need to cover? Nothing heard. And I keep forgetting to tell you, Graham and Lynn, that when you get in your car, you will be able to drive out of this whole area much easier without avoiding all the potholes. They have been doing a lot of sealing on Wangaporo Road, and it's actually a bit boring now, because it used to be that, you know, you could keep awake by dodging the potholes and the slumps and things, but now it's all been beautifully redone. So the place looks a little bit tarted up for the summer. So, and of course the for sale signs are starting to go up again, although they're not moving too fast around the place. Everything has sort of come to a bit of a grinding halt. In fact, they've taken down the sign beside our place because the place did not sell for the price that the guy wanted it sold at. So, yeah, things have very quietened down in the Auckland area generally. All right, I'll just do another call and then we'll go back to what we were doing. Anybody with anything for Gulf Harbour? Nothing heard, so we will assume all is clear and we'll leave you in peace. And I've just checked the streaming, nothing more on there. The heat waves are looking at leaving, maybe Friday. I think that's what Mr. McDevitt said, not before Friday. It doesn't mean to say leave on Friday, but anyway, we'll cover that a bit closer to the time when it looks a little bit, when the models are a bit more in line with each other. All right, folks, have a very good day out there, and hopefully everybody remembers that we jumped to 8297 when the frequency gets a bit grim on 8752.